Well, we got your favorite tire guy here, I hear. I found Wayne Wolfe because I called Barb Bills. And Barb Bills says you have to get Wayne Wolfe in. He's a good storyteller.
I hope so. And I'm doing everything on the fly, so if I miss anything, and if I take too long, just tell me quit, and I will.
Yeah, that's what a few people said. You might.
Well, he said he might be a 2-hour, but he and I have been, since we were teenagers.
Well, it's not your fault only.
Oh, okay.
He likes to talk too.
Does he really?
Yeah. He does.
Okay.
He does. And he's interested in history too, so.
Yeah.
He's got, everybody knows Tom Pellet is president of our museum. And he's been at every single one, so thank you, Tom. And I'd just like to remind you that we're having our barn sale on June 13th, 14th, and 15th down at our 394 Phillips Road. Behind that house, you could bring, if you have stuff that you've collected over the year and you want to get rid of it, bring it down before that date and stick it in the barn in the back. I have the sign out that says Webster Museum, and the door will be open and there's receipts on the table if you need them. So you don't need to call because we know people are coming to drop stuff off. So, but also come to our garage sale.
Okay.
I had a call this morning from someone not in Webster. Said, when is your barn sale? When is your museum barn sale? And where? And give me the address again. And what's the time? And da, da, da. So I mean, it's in June. It's still May. So anyway, it's nice to know that people look forward to it. Anyway, Wayne is here to tell us some stories about Webster and people and even about his own life growing up too, right?
Oh, I'll do that too then, if you want that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay.
Because you grew up in Ontario?
Well, I'll explain all that to you as we go along, yes.
Okay,
Don't steal the script, Jim.
you're on, Wayne.
Okay, thank
you. Do you want a glass of water or something?
Not right now. I'm
Okay.
good. Yeah, a lot of people think my hobby is old cars, but it really is talking. I'm enjoying this. I was born in the Newark Hospital in Newark, New York. Lived there for a few months. My dad got a job at the Gleason Works on University Avenue in Rochester, and we moved to Penfield when I was a few months old and lived there till I was 12 years old, renting from the people behind us. And we had a half a house, 2 houses south of what was the Penfield Central School and now is Finney School. So that's where I grew up.
Okay.
And then
5 Mile?
5 Mile Line Road, yep. 2084 5 Mile Line Road. I remember that from when I was 4 years old. But anyways, at that point, my father wanted to buy his first house, and Penfield was already getting expensive, so we moved to Ontario. And from the time I was 12 years old till I was 21 years old, we lived in Ontario. And my dad lived in his house for 3 years and then died. And he had rheumatic fever about the time I was born, so I really never knew my dad as a healthy person. So my mother married a gentleman named George Giroux, who was the best stepfather a kid could ever have, and they lived together there. And then I moved out when I was, well, let's go back. I was at the Union Hill Carnival, and behind one of the booths was a little girl named Dorothy Coone, C-O-E-N-E. And Dorothy's father was one of the founders of the Union Hill Fire Department, and she was running a booth. Well, I was there with my friend, and I was, you know, that was the right girl for me. And but she later told me my friend was a lot more appealing than I was. I can totally agree with her. But anyways, we then the next time I saw her, the Smith family that lived on Lake Road, one of the sons is Neil Smith, who's a doctor in Ontario, and he is my doctor. They had her tied up to a tree playing cowboys and Indians. And that was the second time I saw her. And then a lady we just lost within this last week was Doris Reinhardt, who was Doris Orbaker. She was our go-between because Dorothy lived in Webster on County Line Road, and Doris lived in the Ontario side. And Dorothy's mother said that Dorothy wasn't going to date until she was 18 years old. Well, at 15 she was dating, but because she would go up to Doris's house and then we would go out on a date, and you know, we were one of the darker sides of my life, so then we were married in Richard and Margaret Kuhn, who owned the Kuhn Farms at that time. Now it's known as Windmill Farms. And I want to make sure I'm right on this, but my brother-in-law has all the land that's around me and across the street, and it's called, like I said, Windmill Farms, and I believe we were the apple capital, we, Webster, were the apple capital of New York State, and now there is one apple farmer in the town of Webster, which is my brother-in-law, Bob Kuhn, and you can't count Schutz because Schutz is in Penfield, you know. So you know that always needs some clarification. Dorothy's parents were great in-laws. Her grandmother, this is history again, had the farm in, I believe, in the 30s. She sold it to her father, or to Dorothy's father, and who sold it to Dorothy's brother. And then David now is my nephew, and a great nephew. They run the farm, and now their son just graduated from Cobleskill, and they wanted him to go get a job, and they really wanted him with the ag, the people that loan money to farmers. And he worked there, and he was really good, and they really came after him, and he wants to be on the farm. If and when he takes over the farm, that'll be the 5th generation. Wow. So Dorothy and I got married in 1964, and the only reason we had a home right off the bat is her parents gave us a lot. And then my great stepfather gave us a 100% loan, which everybody else had to work themselves up to that. And like I said, it changed my whole life because I was, you know, always the poorest kid on the block. But now, so we had the house built by Dick Schultz. And Aggie Schultz is still here on Ridge Road. And every time I see her, I tell her what a great house her husband built for Dorothy and I. That's been 55 years ago. We had, again, with Webster history, Gordy Bay was the one that excavated the lot, put in the septic system, and did all the groundwork. Bill Bash was our masonry guy. He built us the fireplace, the brick wall in the front, but the best thing he did for me was he laid the concrete in the garage and other places, and I've been running steel wheel jacks over that for 48 years, which tells you what a great job. He had something they called the sand mix, and it was just the best mason in Webster. My plumber, or Dick's plumber, was Bernie Welker, who, it was just great. Him and his wife were great volunteers. I love volunteers, and they were great volunteers. He was the fire chief, and his wife was right along his side, and they ran the Explorer group too. And I think at that time, Union Hill rivaled Webster as a fire company. I mean, they had all their ducks in a row. And then I used to rotate the tires on the ambulances when they were only vans, and for Union Hill. Let's see, Jaeger Electric did our electric, and I think that was all the contractors, but every contractor was either an Ontario or a Webster contractor, and that house is still going strong after all these years. In '64, I got married, we built our house, and I started at Xerox, which was a great employer. And in '70, I started my tire business. Again, we'll do some Rochester history now. A guy at work, Sonny Gale, came to me and he says, Rufus Farewell is selling a tire machine for $35, which was a super price. And again, I didn't own a pickup until I was 50 years old. And my brother-in-law and my wife, I was working overtime at Saturday, went up and picked up the machine. When I got it home, I was just thinking, at that time you got $2 a tire to change a tire. And I figured if it cost me 35 bucks, 18 tires later, the tire machine was mine free and clear. But when I got it home, it was an awesome machine. And I said to my wife, I wanted to go into a hot dog stand, pizza parlor, barber, anything to get out of Xerox, which was stupid. I was a young, foolish man. Webster was the best thing that ever happened to me. And anyways, they went up with a farm truck, brought it home, and I started the tire business in 1970. And my wife was the driving force behind it. She would go up, okay, now we got another Webster connection. We bought our tires from Webster Wholesale Tire, which was Bob Hutteman and Nancy Hutteman. And Bob was an awesome businessman. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I said, hey, I'm getting my New York State sales tax number, and I want to do business with you. He says, fine. When you get your number, you come up here and we'll do business. Because a lot of people would go up there and try to wholesale some tires just for their own use. So I didn't appreciate that till later on. And Nancy Hutteman was just a great lady. She had, like when you used to go into the dentist, she had a little drawer. You pull out the little drawer and the kids could pick one of those little gifts out of her drawer. And they were just great people. And then they turned their business over to their son, Chris Hutteman, who eventually got pushed out of the business. And now I buy my tire equipment from him, valve stems and weights and all that. And Chris is just this really nice person, low-key, just an honest businessman like his mother and father were. Let's see. And I go to church with these two ladies, and I did go to Holy Trinity. My wife wanted to be married on the altar, and you had to be Catholic for that. And so I became a Catholic, and then I remained a Catholic until my wife died, and then my daughter and son-in-law, they went to Browncroft Community. And I really loved Pastor Rob, but I didn't like the 7-Eleven music. Now there's a J. Vernon McGee, a reverend, that calls it 7-Eleven music because it's the modern day music. You take 7 words, you sing them 11 times, and, and there's a lot of volume and all that. So I went to a funeral with B, and it was a warm summer's day, and and everybody came, more people than they expected. And Reverend Mike, who was a great Afro-American preacher in the Baptist, Baptist tradition, we'll call it, and he just handled the situation so well. The overcrowding. Oh, we don't have a choir today. Come up here and sit where the choir sits, and all this. And I nudged B and I said, B, if I ever go to another church, this is the church I'm going to go to. And she didn't feel comfortable at Brown Crowd. It was too big. Didn't feel the love or whatever. And so 3 months later, I couldn't take the 7-Eleven music anymore, and we went to Webster Bible Baptist, which sings traditional hymns in every verse. And they have the organist, who is Ron. Ron is the organist, and he's awesome. He used to be the organist at the Fairport Baptist on the corner of 250 and 31F. And we have an organ out of a building in Rochester, and we lost Pastor Mike. He went to live with his family in Chicago. Now, other names you know is Nick Haldupas, goes to that church, who does the spaghetti dinners down here and donates it to various charities.
Barbara Bills.
Barbie Bills got, I call her Barbie. Barbie Bills, she got me to come here. She's the reason I'm here today. So you got to blame her. But anyways, then we have these ladies, and John.
And Tom comes once in a while.
Tom comes once a month if we need it or
I'm
not.
guaranteed religion once a month because I go.
Third
And so
Sunday of the month.
we lost Pastor Mike because he went to live with his family in Chicago, and his daughter and his mother and his brothers and everything are 45 minutes from him, so you couldn't blame him. And these gentlemen came up to me and they said, Wayne, are you going to leave now, because we know how much you enjoyed Pastor Mike. And I said no, because in the Bible it says you will know they are Christians by their love. And I said, and there's a song to that effect, and they have come around us, B and I, and especially B, she was not the one to go to church, and now she's fully involved with the church, and just because of the way that people treat her.
Hey, how long were you at Xerox before?
I started at Xerox in 1964, and good old Ursula Burns, and some people think she might. Burns. She shut my department down, and when I was there 37 and a half years, and I was 57 and a half at the time. Had planned on leaving that, and I was hoping to be there. I was going to be 62 and 40 that year, and the plan was that I would do that, and it just didn't work out, you know. And so then I had run this tire business. I ran the tire business from 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 9 o'clock at night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturdays I run the business if the people are there.
Well, you put tires on half the cars in Webster, I think.
I hope so. So anyways,
I know a street rod that's grateful for your work.
So my son comes out from Avon, who grew up in the business, and if we have a good Saturday, which we don't have anymore because now everybody's got their snow tires off, we do 13 customers on a Saturday and 5 customers a night. And the one gentleman, Scott Dorfner, whose uncle, Walt Dorfner, they just had a service for here at the Holy Trinity Cemetery. He's worked for me for 30 years. And so the tire business has been a good part of my life. When I retired from Xerox or got pushed out, the guy says, "Hey, Wolfe," and some people do call me that, is Wolfe, "Hey, you're not working anymore, so can I come in the morning, 9 o'clock?" I said, "Sure." And then another guy asked me, and my wife Dorothy, who was the best thing that ever happened to me, tapped me on the shoulder and she asked me, "Are you trying to kill me?" And I said, "What do you mean, what, trying to kill you?" She says, "I still got to do the washing, I still have to do the ironing, I still have to do the quoting of tires, and the gardening. My house hasn't looked as good as it should ever since I lost her to ovarian cancer 10 years ago." And so I said, "Yes, dear." And so we still run from 4 o'clock in the afternoon till 9 o'clock at night. And after I lost her, I found out what she was talking about, because now I have to do the dishes and I have to do all that. She would pick up the tires from the Hudemans, and that's when my kids would go along with her during the summertime, and Nancy would open up the drawer and they could pick a little gift out, and then she would have them all stacked for me when I got out of Xerox. I mean, and the one time, I would take them on and off the car, and she would take them on and off the wheels. And I'm going to be the guy, and you're going to be his wife. And the guy came up to his wife, he brought his wife along on a Saturday, and he said, see, I told you she would change tires. Because his wife would not believe that a lady would be running the tire machine.
You know what I always remember with her was that multicolored
El Camino.
El Camino.
Oh.
Running around town, you couldn't even see her hardly sitting in there because the back was so full of tires.
Yeah, and she would take them to Webster Wholesale and get rid of the old ones and bring home the new ones. And then we do have many more vendors now, but it just was it's been a great part of my life. The people I've met, like you say, I mean, and the other thing is, somebody says, we used to have animals, but ever since my wife was gone, I said, no, I don't need an animal, because she kept a very clean house, and I don't need 4 dirty paws making a mess out of that. And I do go away to Carlisle, Pennsylvania for the old car show, for the antique flea market every spring and fall. And I go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then I go to the Syracuse Nationals Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and somebody would have to take care of the animals. So I love other people's dogs, but I don't need an animal. And besides that, I have, she says, because you're going to be lonely, because us bachelors are all supposed to be lonely. And so I say no, because every night I have 5 friends that come over to visit me while I put their tires on. And so it's a very good experience, and I love to talk. Now, if I meet you in Wegmans and I start to talk and you think I'm talking too long, you say, okay, see ya. But when your car is on the jack in my garage, you're not
Get
going
away.
I've got a captured audience, you know. So, like I said,
In the midst of all of this too, the one thing you didn't mention was that you suffered a heart attack.
oh yes,
At one point too.
Thank you very much. Yeah, okay. I didn't suffer a heart attack. I went to have a treadmill test, and from the treadmill test, they said, you're going to Rochester General and have an EKG. I woke up from the EKG, and they said, you're having a 6-way bypass tomorrow. And so they put me on the table, and while they were in there, they found a 40%. Otherwise, they don't go after 40%, so they gave me the bonus 7-way bypass. And my friend's friend was an anesthesiologist, and he says, your buddy is really very quite lucky And he says, why? He says, only 20% of the people make it through a 7-way bypass. So I'm a very blessed person to have that. But I would like to go back and say what a wonderful wife I had. She not only was my wife, she was my business partner, but she was also my best buddy. And we would go to Carlisle and Syracuse Nationals, and before that, Hershey. She's just this wonderful, wonderful woman. I just couldn't ask for a better mate. And when I lost her, I was devastated. And she had also an orange '55 Chevy sedan delivery. That's a car with no windows in it. It would look like
Station wagon with no.
a station wagon with no windows in it, with Wolfe tire on the back. And if I have to sell my cars, that will be the last one. And that's why I'm still running the tire business, because I've got the expense of the barn and all the insurances, and that's why I'm still running the tire business.
How many cars do you have now?
I
Isn't
don't
that
like-
one a Nomad or something?
Yeah, I had a Nomad.
I remember
Now,
that.
we were buddies way back when. When we were both young.
Yeah.
And
She still lives.
She still is.
Yeah, I know that's been creeping up on me a long time. But anyways, I guess what most people would say, I have too many cars, but
How many do you have?
A lot.
In a big barn?
Yeah, I have, and, let me tell you, that's another Xerox story. Okay, then I'll tell you the cars. Remind me. So I'm working out of my garage, and Herbie Stern, who used to be the Webster lawyer,
Yep.
lived down in Lake Road. And Herbie and I were friendly. So I went down to Herbie and I said, I want to run this tire business. Herbie said, it won't work. You're in R2 residential.
Oh, yeah.
And I says, well, I want to run the business. He says, my recommendation, you don't make it look like a business. And my wife was really good about that one. And you just run the business. Well, I guess it's 7 years. After you run the 7 years and you haven't had a complaint, and all the apple trees around me, they didn't mind. And so after 7 years, I was grandfathered in. Well, at that time, early in my business, everybody, no, not everybody, but a few people had campers with they would put the camper on the back of their pickup
Oh, yeah.
and ride around with that. Well, when they had to change their tires in December, we had to do them out in the parking lot. And so I said to Dorothy, let's build a barn with a nice big door, and we'll move out to the barn. Well, a gentleman up the road from us had 52 acres. And he wanted to build a golf course. Well, Hap Rifflin's son from Happy Acres, the golf course, his son was on the, and this is only supposition on my part, but he was on the town board, and the town board felt we didn't need another golf course. So this guy made himself the self-appointed avenger of the zoning laws. So when I first built the barn, I didn't have enough money for the gambrel roof, so it really looked a lot like a mobile gas station. And he went to the town of Webster, and he says, this is a commercial structure for a commercial business in a residential area. So my wife was working in the garage while I was at Xerox, and we had just taken a delivery on 30 tires, and the gentleman from Webster came in, and Dorothy tried to cover up the tires, and the guy said, we know you've been doing this. And he says, as long as you don't make this look like a business, and the grandfather thing and all that, we're not going to bother you. But the first time, because now we have a formal complaint, you run a business out of that barn, we're going to come on you like a ton of bricks. And so I was really upset with the gentleman for a lot of years, and then it dawned on me, my wife would have never let me build that barn to put my old cars in if I just wanted to build the barn for the old cars. But because we were building it for the business and then couldn't use it, now we had this vacant space we had to do something with, you know? So that was that one. I probably have, I'll guess, eight older cars.
What years are you talking about?
I have, for the hot rod guys here, I have a 1940 Willys Coupe with a 454 motor in it, and this was a racing class, and I've been working on it for only 22 years. And now we just got up to the wiring part of it, because other cars would distract me. I have a 54 Corvette, the second year they built the Corvette, a 55 Bird, the first year they built the Thunderbird. I have my wife's 55 sedan delivery. I have a 34 Ford 5-window coupe. Now, when you're a hot rodder, they call it chopping, the top, your windows used to be this high. My windows are now this high. And instead of having the frame right on the body is into, the frame is into the body, which and so it's called chopped and channeled, and that's a 34 Ford 5-window coupe. I have a Cobra kit car, because I can't afford the real thing. I have a
Mustang?
66 Mustang. Oh yeah, well the black, I got a 66 Mustang, which is, we'll go into Beatrice later. I have a 66 Mustang convertible, which is B's favorite car, and a 68 Mustang fastback, which is like the Bullet car from the movie Bullet. And so yeah, that, and then I have a 93 Blazer that's sitting out here on the road.
Well, your son was known in high school for that Mustang that he used to drive, wasn't
Well, the red Mustang.
Yeah.
We had a red Mustang that I bought at Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and that was a beautiful car.
I remember there was a comment somewhere along the line in the yearbooks when he graduated that had something to do with what did they remember him for was the red Mustang.
And then he also had a Camaro when he was 15 years old. We went to California and we found a Camaro and we drove it across the United States.
Oh my goodness.
And he still has it to this day. And his sister still has her 77 Camaro, which we bought in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and never saw a winter. Then I bought her a winter. Okay, when you're in the hobby, you have summer cars and you have winter cars or salt cars, and you don't drive your summer cars in the rain because rust is your worst enemy. So we get goofy. Like you go to a car show, if it's threatening rain, like this car show they have at the on Bay Road.
Oh, the
Damascus.
Yeah.
Damascus.
Yeah.
If they can get 200-300 cars on a Friday night, if it's going to rain, they might get 40. You know, because all the rest of the people are as crazy as I am. But so, anyways, my wife did die 10 years ago, and I was going to be a bachelor. I didn't see any reason to go any farther. And then Beatrice Smith, who her late husband was Michael Smith, and he's the Smith, his grandfather was the Smith, again history, from Smith and Lutz Funeral Home. In her living room, she has a plaque that says Smith and Lutz. And she came in for tires, and her son was coming home from California, and they wanted to go to Inlet where she has a place, and she wanted good tires for her son to make the trip. And she gets into my shop, and it had to be January, and I said, "You don't need tires." She says, "Oh no, I got to have at least 2 tires." I says, "Well, the Bible says you don't take advantage of widows and orphans." Now she fell into the widow category, so I couldn't take advantage of her. I says, "You I want you to take these other 2 tires back for whatever reason, but I would feel like I was stealing if I took these tires from you. Oh, and by the way, when she came to my place, she brought split pea soup with her, which I hadn't had that good a split pea soup since I was 4 and 5 years old when my mother used to make it. And she also brought brownies. And so, no, it was chocolate chips. So she comes, she says, well, I don't have any room in my car for the tires. I said, well, and this is, I have a friend, Will Fox, who is a Christian brother, and he calls them God incidences. You don't have coincidences, you have God incidences. Well, the Lord, if this would have happened 2 months or any time during October, November, December that she came in, I would have said, I don't have time to bring them to your house. But the tire business is very cyclical, okay, and it goes up and down. I am in great shape during September, October, November, December, when people are putting on their tires. And I found this out, the 2nd week of January, you don't sell tires. And I said, Dorothy, somebody moved into town and is undercutting our prices because we're not selling tires. No, it's the fact that people are paying their Christmas bills, they're paying their taxes, they're paying their high fuel bills, and even if they need tires, they don't buy tires. So anyways, I brought the tires to B's place on 55 Elm Street, which was easy to remember because I had a 55 automobile. And that's how I remember things. Like my telephone number is 265. Well, the first V8 that Chevy made in 55 was a 265 cubic inch engine, 06. It wasn't a 6-cylinder, that's how I remember that. 5.1, and they didn't make a V8 in a 51 Chevy. So that's how my thinking goes. But anyways, so I went there, and she was very happy that I brought the tires, and she said, "Would you want to come over for a meal?" Well, Billy Graham has a theory that you shouldn't have just a man and a woman. It's just, you should have a third person there, so we'll say hanky-panky. Yeah, right.
I don't know.
So anyways, B says, "You want to come over for dinner?" I said, "Wow, that split pea soup was really good, and those chocolate chips were really awesome, but I shouldn't do this." I says, "No, I think I said it to her at that time, and she says, well, I could grab somebody off the street, because you gotta know B's sense of humor. She says, I could find somebody walking by and they could be with us, and I finally gave in and I said, okay. Well, I had not dated in 44 years, so I was really out of my element here. So we went, and we had everything from soup to nuts. We had a very good meal, and then we went to watch television, and I sat on the couch like this. and she, I almost didn't make the first cut. And I'm glad I did make the first cut, because then the next time she invited me to have a meal with her daughter and son-in-law and granddaughter, and this other couple she's known ever since she was in school. And right away I saw the way she loved her granddaughter, and she even loved her son-in-law, which doesn't happen, and her daughter and her are more like sisters than they are daughter and mother, and they just tease back and forth. And I saw this loving person, and I was drawn by that, and we have been going together probably now 6 or 7 years.
And I think it's the neighbors that also drew you.
Huh?
The neighbors also.
Oh, yeah,
drew you.
we got the greatest neighbors.
What neighbor was that?
The lady with the most beautiful garden, flower garden in Webster right here, lives across, and when I always back in, now I had to get used to this. I'm a country boy. I live down on County Line Road, where very few people walk. Well, you can go out of here, especially in the summer, people can be walking their dogs at 11 o'clock at night. And one of my worst fears is to hit a pedestrian. So when I pull in, it's in the daytime, so I can see everything. I back into her driveway, and when I drive out, every time I see her beautiful garden. And the neighbors all get along. We have porch parties across the street at Dave Stryker's place. I don't know, I'm being politically incorrect here, but I'm gonna go there. B says Dave Stryker wants us to come over for a porch party. Well, my friends who are police officers tell me that a porch party in the city has watermelon, alcoholic beverages, and rap music. And so I was interested. I found out that a porch party in Webster is wine and hors d'oeuvres and beautiful conversation. So, I mean, my whole concept of porch parties was totally upended. And then Stryker has one of the best Christmas parties you could ever ask with all the friends and neighbors. And like I said, yes, you said it right. The neighbors are awesome in there. Like I said, I really never thought, after I was devastated for 2 months after I lost my wife, didn't even go to church, didn't do anything, but the tire business probably was good because I had to be out there, and otherwise I would have probably just become a recluse, you know. And I never thought I would laugh again, but I laugh heavily with B. She's a great person. So I think I've kind of run out of things to say. But, my coach, I don't know if anybody wants to ask a question.
Where did you graduate from?
Wayne Central. Oh, let's go there then.
Okay.
So I graduated from Wayne Central in Ontario
19.
in 1962, and all my athletic uniforms had my name on it, Wayne. You know, so, and as a young teenager, a little bit naive, I got very excited when the cheerleaders would say, "Go Wayne, go." I thought they were talking to me, you know, but obviously they weren't. Like any teenager, I had a little bit of an ego problem, I did. Another interesting thing, I was, before I had the tire business, I was going to try to go and become what we would refer to in the union. I started in the union at Xerox and be a white shirt. So you had to have a degree for that. So the first professor I had, was Mr. Hilton, and at the end of the year, we were going over the test, and I says, we didn't even have this. He never taught us. He said, "Oh yeah, he told us it was going to be on the test." I said, "No, he didn't." He said, "Yeah, after class we'd go over and have a beer, and he told us everything that was going to be on the class." Well, I didn't go and have a beer, so so I said, "Okay," not having the morals I should. I said, "Well, this is the way you play the game." So the next one I took was psychology. And I had a psychology professor, and I said, "Well, are we going to have a beer after this?" And he says, "No, I don't drink beer." I said, "You don't?" He says, "No, beer kills brain cells." And he says, and I said, "Yeah, but we lose brain cells all the time." He says, "No, the ones you lose to alcohol you don't get back. And I know I started with a deficit, so why make this? So I was a total teetotaler for a number of years, and then now I have my occasional wine and an occasional beer. I probably have a 6-pack and a half of beer a year and 3 bottles of wine a year. So I mean, I have not, I've got away from the teetotaler thing, but
What
but
degree were you gonna go for? What were you gonna?
just anything to get me a white shirt.
Oh, okay.
So anyways, then I was at Xerox. That was interesting too, because the big house, which we called Xerox, I worked for them, and it was you had to have a degree if you wanted to be an engineer, because I couldn't be a foreman, because as nervous and jerky as I am, and not liking foul language and all that, if you had 35 people working for you, at least 7 of them thought their only job at Xerox was to make your life miserable. And they would have carried me out of there if I was a foreman. So I said, okay, I'm just not going to, I'm not going to go this way. Well, you could be a technician. I was a technician in an audit lab where we tested the machines before they went out to the customer. And I worked at that, and I was that for 14 years. And about the 14th year, a previous manager of mine who now worked for the Skunk Works. Now that was an organization in Xerox that was like the Rat Pack, if you ever saw the military movie, where all these misfits got together and they were a fighting unit and all that. That's what they thought of themselves. They didn't play by the big house rules and all that. So a gentleman named Paul Freimert came up to my boss, Ron Love, and says, does Wolfe still have the same work ethic he had when he worked for me 13 years ago? And he says, yes, he does. So he offered me a job as an engineer. And he said, but I want to try you out first as a technician. And I thought to myself, no, I have a very good situation here. And I says, it's either you give me the engineering job or I don't take the job. So he did. And for 5 years, all this was quality control. All the time I worked up until now. And the next 5 years I was a quality control engineer. And then the last 5 years I was a manufacturing engineer. And the last 5 years was the best years of my life. And then, like I said, Ursula ended that. But I guess I kind of ran out unless somebody has a question.
It was kids running out.
It was good, Wayne. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, very good.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Wayne,
Thank you very much.
for taking the challenge.
Yeah, it was
I don't know why we didn't ever hear about you. We were,
Yeah, I'm the best, again,
we were in West Webster.
Yeah.
And I've been here 50 years. I never heard your name about tires.
no, and it's all word of mouth.
Oh, is it?
And I think my wife and I at least stopped advertising 25 years ago. And everything is word of mouth. I got great customers that tell other great customers. And so I have we don't have to work with the transit trade. We have nice people that send other nice people, and I have some of the best clientele you could ever ask for. And yeah, like I said, when we did
Most of them
advertise.
come from Webster?
Huh? Oh, no. Well, it used to be Xerox.
Yeah.
And then I had a group of guys that whenever they had shutdown at the Gannett, they lived in Rochester, they would go down Bay Road
Oh, yeah.
before we lost the Bay Bridge. But anyway, the Little Bay Bridge, I call it. And they would go by, and on the way home, they would buy some tires from me. No, I have people that come from Victor.
Oh, wow.
I had one student that was very interested. He came with his friend who went to Buffalo University, and he lived in the Syracuse area, and he would go to Buffalo U get off the thruway, come down and buy his tires, and then continue on to Syracuse. And then I've had some really good customers. I have one that moved down south and would come, and when he came back to see his family, and if tires were right, we would change his tires for him. So I have awesome people who do business with me, you know.
That's great.
And it's just, and when we did do the ads, we said Michelin, Goodyear, and Webster. I think Webster recaps were first. Webster recap, Michelin, and Goodyear's, and we didn't put Wolfe Tire on it. Again, we didn't exist as far as the town of Webster was concerned. So, and I couldn't have a sign in my front lawn. Then the interesting was, the lady I was, maybe 5 years ago, I was telling her where I lived at the end of the county line road, and she says, you lived in the John Deere house. And I said,
John Deere
it's a green house with yellow shutters. And now I tell my customers, drive until you see the John Deere house.
That's cute.
When you were a young man, did you have a home in Ontario?
Yeah, I lived on Community Lane, which was a little dead-end street behind the Tops. And now they're building Community Lane apartments back there, which Scott Dorfner's, who has worked for me now for like 30 years plus, his mother is she just sold her house and she's going to move into that. And Harold Lubbert was my next door neighbor who worked for Crowley Chevrolet.
Her lover.
And he worked for Crowley Chevrolet, and he kind of became a father to me when my dad died when I was 15 years old, and I would go over to Crowley Chevrolet, and that was part of my my love for cars was right there, and they hired me to wash 57 Oldsmobiles and 57 Chevys, and that was the other thing. And another great thing about my dad, because he was sickly, he made sure he kept up on the insurance policy. And he told my mother, when I die, pay off the house and buy the best car you can with the money. So my mother followed his instruction. He died in '58, paid off the house, and like I said, my dad only lived in the house he owned for 3 years before he died. And my mother bought this really cool '57 Chevy, 4-door hardtop, power pack V8, and she would let me drive it. And on the weekends, we go to Dick Clark's Mobile Station, and back then the gas was 25 cents a gallon, and everybody in the car contributed a quarter, including myself. That gave us 4 gallons of gas. Drive up to Main Street in Rochester, another dark side of my life, and drag race from street light to street light, and come back home with an empty tank of gas. And that was how we spent a few of our Saturday nights. You know, so.
Run on the main.
Huh?
Did you ever go up against Rosemary Januso in her Corvette?
Oh no, that was the Saturday thing. We used to go to Spencer Speedway and watch her race. And and racing, Spencer Speedway was a big part of my life, both for drag racing. And then my name.
Sponsored a lot of cars.
Mason.
Freddie Mason, Dan Mason.
Dan Mason. Dan Mason. Wolfe Tire was on the side of my car. Wolfe Tire, and he put it where when he took his picture with a flag that you would see it. Danny Mason was very, very good to me because I didn't do that much for him financially, and he was and then Jan Leedy, another famous racer from the area, his first strictly stock car I was there. And I think I'd be remiss. I mean, Webster, I just got to say this, just throw it in, that Freddie Mason used to let the Webster Fire Company use his Jeep when they had to go fight a grass fire. And I mean, he is one of those people I look up to. And I mean, I looked up all the volunteers in Webster, in Union Hill, for the great jobs they do, you know. I think now I should quit.
Unless somebody else can think of a story he hasn't told.
How long do you wanna be here?
I
Thank
could
you.
add to your story of
Okay.
drag racing at Spencer's. I had a '56 Fury, and my girlfriend had a '56 Fairlane, and we would go and drag race it.
Really? Yeah.
And
There you go.
also I'd go downtown Rochester and drag on Main Street.
You did too?
Yeah.
We both had a dark side.
Yes.
Dark side.
I love those times.
Oh, yeah, I mean, automobiles, I mean, I've loved I mean, I had the models when I was a child, and I think, that was, okay, one more interesting story. I had, my first car I ever bought with my own money was a 40 Ford Coupe. And that's a 1940 Ford Coupe, because somebody, thinks I say 44, but it's 40 Ford. And I owned that car, and Donnie Dipple kept it on his farm on Route 350 for me. And then I bought another 40 Ford, and when I started the tire business, I only had a one-bay garage, and I had the 40, so it wouldn't be in the rain. So as a result, I would do the tire customer out in the driveway, and my wife said, no, this is crazy. So that was the only time in my life I was not with an old car in my possession. I sold it, and then once we built the addition to the garage that I have, then we had a place for the car again. But I mean, I was that crazy that.
Did you buy it? You didn't buy it back.
No, I had 3 40 Fords in my life, and that was a recurring theme in my life. But,
You like that car?
yeah, they were cool cars, But I've got that out of my system now.
When you talked about the Syracuse car show, that happens in July every year. It's a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and it's at the state fairgrounds. And routinely, they get close to 10,000 cars
Oh, wow.
from all over the eastern United States. It's probably the biggest show.
Yeah,
east of the
okay,
Mississippi.
and at the fairgrounds, the only show that is bigger is the state fair.
Yeah, but you have to, we always try to park where we could see all the cars that were coming in. And the big guess was on any particular day, what car was he gonna drive in it? You never knew what he was gonna show up in.
Okay, let me, another, if you don't mind, one more. I bought one pass to get into the place. And like you said, I got some double back tape. And so, the one day I drove my Cobra, okay? And then I took the double back tape off and put it on
Probably the Nomad.
the sedan delivery, the sedan delivery. And then the next day, I think it was the 54, and then the 54 Vet. And as I was driving in, there was one guy who was very alert that if you don't pull the back of the sticker off, there's a white label there. And the guy caught me and says, hey, check that sticker, check that sticker. And the other guy who didn't know what I was doing said, oh, there's a sticker there. And so I went right in. Well, from then on out, I used like a polishing cloth and shoved it up against the window so I could get away with that.
Well, they give you one sticker for your car.
And it's supposed to be for
And so-
one car.
Yeah,
So,
and
but I
it's
used
good
it on
for all
multiple
3 days,
cars.
so if you change cars around and you haven't got the sticker, then they're gonna get you for whatever amount of money
Oh,
you
so
get.
then
So-
I wanted to be inside again. We can't have rain, and like my Cobra doesn't even have a top, so that doesn't work. And the 54 Corvette has a top, and when they designed it so if it did rain, all the water went on the feet of the passenger in the Corvette. So I saw all these cars
That's
parked.
funny.
So I had to park, I wanted to get out of the rain, I see all these cars inside. And they said, how do you get inside? Oh, you gotta be a club member of one of the clubs that help out in the show. So I says, okay. So I joined the Thunderbird Club of Syracuse, and that didn't work out. And then B's friend, who owned, they both bought their cottages in Inlet 35 years ago, next to each other. She belonged to a car club in the Prison City Ramblers from Auburn, New York.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, because of her pull, I am a proud member of the Prison City Ramblers. And I've never went to one of their meetings or one of their shows, but every year I park my car inside. And so, yes, so, I'm sorry to keep you.
Thank you very much. You learned a lot, Wayne. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
And here's a cup from us for your coffee in the morning. Here's a pen with our name on it. And this is here to show, so that you can bring your friend and come. And this shows the hours that we're open.
And this cup, B has got one,
Does she?
and I
Oh.
drink coffee out of
There.
a
How'd
cup
she get
like
one?
this.
Oh,
She must have bought
Oh.
one. She probably bought one, yeah.
Yeah, she did.
Okay, one more time.
So bring her over for a visit.
Yeah,
And
so-
you can see all Lynn's, she can show her all Lynn's hats.
Yes. So anyways, the first time I went to B's, I was here at 20 minutes to 11 because I didn't read the communique right, and it was supposed to be 12 o'clock. So I've been here for a while. And the first time I was invited to B's, I was here a half an hour early. So I'm looking around and I said, how can I spend some time? I look over and the museum's open. And I walked into the museum and I saw the candy kitchen set up and everything else, and I was blown away by this museum. I mean, we're not the biggest town in the world, but we got a really nice museum. And I think I joined that day.
Good.
I think I joined, and I don't know if I've not paid my dues or not, but if I haven't, I would like to. But I came in here, and then when I had wasted 20 minutes, then I went on to B's, and that was it.
Then you had something to talk about, too.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, Wayne, for coming. Everybody liked it.